I am committed to due process. What I have done is remove those two senior level agents to non-supervisory positions outside. They're not working at the White House. They're outside of their offices, and we will await the findings of the OIG.
When is a Secret Service no longer secret? When we are bombarded with claims and counterclaims about an agency that, either way, needs a real overhaul. Our guest used to work for the United States Secret Service, now retired. He served in the Presidential Protection Division under 3 presidents and is also a former CIA officer. His fascinating look back at that time is within the pages of Within Arm's Length, a Secret Service agent's definitive inside account of protecting the president. It's a pleasure to welcome in Dan Emmett. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you very much.
Dan, it's pretty interesting when I hear in the last 24 hours that Joseph Clancy, the head of the Secret Service, says, wait a minute, we have surveillance video debunking the whole March 4th incident. It was not a serious collision, and that people really knee-jerked on this. Your take, when this first hit, did the media overreact on all this, or were we really just taking into account what we've heard and putting it all to work with the Secret Service of today?
Well, in my view, the media probably did overreact initially because very few facts were known when the first stories were published. Initially, it sounded like you had 2 agents who were wild drunk, crashing through barricades, contaminating crime scenes. But I think what's going to be discovered is that it's far less than was initially thought. But I think the problem here is not going to be the act itself that perpetuated these things, but the disappearance of these tapes. I think all of us who lived through Watergate remember the distress that the administration went through with the 20-some-odd minutes of missing tapes. And so that's going to require probably as much explaining to the Inspector General's office as the incident itself.
Well, here we go. The incident itself and the tapes here. Apparently, we're told now that, well, within 72 hours, all the tapes are recycled. They're sort of poo-pooing this at this point. You're not buying that in the least, are you? Because if you've got something like this happening, you're keeping the tapes. You're not trying to hide them.
Well, I think that the IG, certainly what they're going to look at is, number one, is it Secret Service policy? Is it written Secret Service policy to actually delete surveillance tapes after 72 hours? And if so, is it automatically done, or does an individual have to actually hit a delete button? Now, the question that I have in this particular case has to do with the fact there are 2 surviving tapes. And so if there are 2 surviving tapes, then where are the rest? And why did those 2 tapes survive? None of the others did. It would seem to me that you have all of them or you have none of them. And so that is something that's certainly going to be a concern to the IG.
Dan, you wrote the words "from prostitutes in Colombia to drunkenness in Amsterdam," talking about the Secret Service, and you wrote those words in the Washington Post back in March of last year. So isn't it fair to say that if there is a knee-jerk from the media or the people, it's been well earned by the Secret Service? It's not as if this is a one-off deal.
Oh, no. In this particular situation, I don't really fault the media for the knee-jerk. It was a natural response given the history of the service over the past 3 years, given the lapses of personal conduct as well as operational failures. But I do agree with Director Clancy when he says that he believes in due process. I think we all should, and at least give these agents the benefit of the doubt. These are lifelong Secret Service agents, senior agents, so why don't we see exactly what the IG says before we actually try and convict these guys, in the court of public opinion. If it is what they said it was initially, it's going to be very bad, but it could very well be less. Again, I think the issue is going to come back to, with most people, what's up with the tapes.
I have about 30 seconds left. We'll take a break, come back and talk more. But in those 30 seconds, same article, you wrote, and I quote, "I do not believe that alcohol abuse is a cultural problem within the Secret Service." Do you still believe that a year later?
I do believe that. I have never believed that it was a part of the culture. I've always believed that the problems that the Secret Service has been experiencing over the last 3 years is simply the result of poor leadership at practically every level.
Here we go now. We're getting down to that whole leadership word, and whether or not it comes from Washington, D.C. or any place else across America, it seems that one way or another we always wind up getting right back to that word. Dan, if you would, please stand by just a couple of moments here because we're going to continue, and we're going to talk just about that when we come back. Let's continue this search for more than just this knee-jerk about the Secret Service after the break. Let's also not forget that the White House is basically, in many minds, not really looking to see if they can uncover what went on. There's a fake White House that they're talking about building to help the Secret Service, but it comes up to another question as well. Who's watching the watchers? We'll do that and so much more when we return with Dan Emmett right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything. Welcome back to MidPoint. The former veteran member of the U.S. Secret Service, one who at a time had pledged to take a bullet for his president, Dan Emmett, joins us on the show. Dan, thanks once again for joining us. Let's go ahead and get right to the core of things here. The Department of Homeland Security, the creation of that division, if you will. Can we all go right back to that as the point when the Secret Service and the culture there started to change for the worse?
In my view, yes, absolutely. When President Bush, 43, placed the U.S. Secret Service under the Department of Homeland Security, the Secret Service expanded by about 1/3 the number of agents that it had on duty at the time. When that happens, when you expand a small, elite, well-trained unit so quickly, standards are going to suffer. And they did. Unfortunately, we trained quite a few agents over the period of about 2 years that under ordinary times would not have been hired. Now, some of those individuals are now coming to the supervisory level. You have to also look at the number of supervisory positions that were created in the Secret Service as a result of that move to Homeland. Somebody had to fill those slots, and it was not always the best people.
In your mind, how weakened then is national security and the security of protecting the president, his family, and other important individuals in this country under the current leadership of the Secret Service?
Well, I think that Joe Clancy coming in was a good move. He has made some very drastic changes by cleaning out virtually every major position on the 8th floor, the director's floor, and replacing them. So now I think what he's going to do is go to the divisional levels, like the head of the Presidential Protective Division and others, which is really where the problems are occurring. If you look at all of the problems the Secret Service has had over the past 3 years, you can trace them directly back to the units assigned to the White House. The Vice President's detail is not having a problem, nor is any other division in the Secret Service. The field offices are not having problems. It's all the presidential detail, it's the counter-assault team, it's the counter-snipers, it's the uniform division. And so I think that the next stop is to clean those places out. In terms of, is the president safe? Yes, he is safe. The Secret Service has a system, it's a fail-safe system. The only time I've ever known it to fail was when Mr. Gonzalez jumped the fence, made it all the way across the lawn and into the White House. And that was a complete operational breakdown of the uniform division.
But seeing as there is that sort of an operational breakdown, though, Dan, wouldn't you now say that from the time that you spent at the Secret Service until right now, that the possibility exists that the president, whomever he or she is simply not as safe as the time when you served?
Well, it's hard to say. I know that during my time, we worked very hard. We did everything possible to ensure the safety of the president, just as I believe the agents of today are. I really do believe that the rank and file are spectacular. The kids coming in today are excellent. They're just not being properly led. Now, if you go back to Cartagena, again, 3 years ago, and look at every incident that's occurred between then and now, you're going to find a supervisor involved. And I can tell you that that certainly never did happen ever, ever, ever when I was an agent. The supervisor set the example, and if the rank and file got out of line, then they pulled them back into line. So it's very difficult to maintain good order and discipline when it's the people at the top of the pyramid who are acting out.
Then let's get to that leadership here. I got about 90 seconds left, though. The promotional system here, even as you've pointed out and others have, it is the best liked people, not the most qualified who get the jobs. I have to go back to when I was a kid, when my grandfather said that somebody's got to have dirty pictures of somebody in order to keep their job as long as they have. It sure seems that way in the Secret Service.
It's a very small organization, and it is the culture within the Secret Service has always been take care of the people who are best liked. And the best liked are generally the people who don't create waves, never question anything, and they're strictly political animals. And so while you do have some very good people at the supervisory level, unfortunately, you have many who are not very good and never should have been placed in those positions.
Me, the guy who questions everything, then I would be in a big problem then if I joined the Secret Service. I got about 40 seconds left. What's your thought on an $8 million fake White House? Will that really help anything?
Well, it will certainly help prepare the agents assigned to the presidential detail and the uniform division to do their jobs better. There's nothing like a good simulator to help you do the real thing when the time comes. I was amazed that Congress would balk at $8 million, considering they just spent $50 million on the Enhanced Interrogation Program investigation for the CIA to investigate a program that no longer exists, has not existed in quite some time, and never will exist again. Yet they resist giving the Secret Service $8 million to better protect the president. That made absolutely no sense to me.
Talk to Hollywood sometime. I think they still have a set left from White House Down that might actually be able to help.
Maybe they could use that one to save a little money.
Why not? Save a couple of bucks. I want to remind everybody again, the book is an excellent read. Within Arm's Length, a Secret Service agent's definitive inside account of protecting the president. Real quick, Dan, would you still take a bullet for your president?
Well, you know, I think I'm an old school patriot. If they asked me to come back, I probably would, as much as I would not want to, but I would.
That's exactly what it is. It's also leadership, and it's also a dedication to their job. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. I'll look forward to speaking again.
Thank you, sir. Call anytime.
Take care. Some people decide to protect the president. Others decide you need to talk about race when you buy coffee. We'll deal with that when we return right here on MidPoint.